Okay, we are starting a brand new 2-page spread. And so this is page 43. And we are calling this Naming 3D Figures. And in your table of contents, you can just call this, oops, I left out 42, whoops. Name 3D. So in terms of naming 3D figures, sorry, I know you can't see that. There are lots of 3D figures, but we're only going to talk about two of them. So there are cylinders, there are cones, there are spheres, there are, I can't think of anything else, but the ones we're doing, which we are doing a prism and a pyramid. And I guess the best way to do this might be to make a T-chart. So one thing you need to know is that it gets its name based on the number of bases it has. And we'll talk more about what bases are, but a prism is something that has two identical bases, one at either end. And something to know is a base doesn't always have to be on the bottom. So a prism has two identical bases. Hopefully I'll put so not to make it stand out. So something like this is a prism, and these are the two bases because they're the two identical sides. So this is a prism. This is also a prism. It's a triangle, and these are the two bases, the two identical sides. Okay, so that is a prism. The other kind of shape we're going to talk about is a pyramid, and a pyramid has only one base. So these are two examples of pyramids. There's this one base on the bottom and this base on the bottom, but you'll see there's nothing across from each other. It's just the point on the other side. So the base is also opposite of the apex, the tallest point of the pyramid. So then the naming of what it is comes from the shape of the base. And you're going to see some root words in here that you've probably seen before. So if the base is a triangle, we say it's triangular. If it's a square, we can say square, or if it's not a square, but it's a rectangle, and say rectangular. What do you think this shape would be? It's a pentagon. So it's something weird happens with the stress. So you usually say pentagonal. You don't say pentagonal, but if you say pentagonal, that's fine in here. This shape right here would be a hexagonal or a hexagonal. And the only other one we're going to talk about is our favorite, the stop sign, which is an octagon, in this case an octagonal or an octagonal. So if it has two octagons on either side, it is an octagonal prism. If it has one octagon on the bottom and it comes to a point, it's an octagonal pyramid. Same thing here. If it is a square prism, then it has two squares on either side. If it is a square pyramid, then it has a square on the bottom and it comes to a point. So that's naming 3D figures. Now let's talk about how to draw them. Now this is something some of you might already be really good at. Some of you might not have a lot of experience. So when we're going to draw a prism, because a prism has two identical bases, you just draw the bases to start with. And you usually draw them a little offset from each other. So let's say I'm going to do a triangular prism. I usually draw one and then draw the other one sort of offset from it. Then I just use lines to connect the same corners. Sometimes people shade in one of the bases just to sort of make it more obvious what it looks like. That's an optional step. If we were going to draw maybe like a square prism, you could draw two squares offset. You can make them as far apart as you want. And then you connect same corner to same corner. So top right to top right, bottom left to bottom left. And I can shade one to make it look. Okay, that's prism. If I have to draw a pyramid, I'm just going to tell you these look wonky a lot of the time, and there's really not much you can do about it. But you start again by drawing the base. So if it is a triangular pyramid, you start by drawing a triangle, and then you connect. I like to draw like the starting point, just pick where I want my apex to be, and I draw lines down to each of the corners. See, it looks kind of funky, but it is what it is. Let's say I had to do a pentagonal pyramid. I would start by drawing a pentagon, which has 5 sides. Pick a spot up here for my apex and connect the apex to each of the 5 corners. There you go. Now you know how to name and draw 3D figures.